Welcome back to the FeaturesTalk Podcast,
Woohoo!
where we are making vehicle technology simple and relevant for everyday drivers, which is all of us. It's all of us on the road. I am your host, Lisa Bailey, and joining me today is our resident automotive product specialist and my co-host, Luke Versput. Welcome
Hello,
back,
everyone.
Luke.
Hello, everyone. Loyal listeners, first time
Right.
newcomers, and everyone in between. Thanks everyone for tuning in and again. And so this one is kind of it's a fun segment we have going on because we are wrapping up actually a little mini series that we've been doing. So
Yay.
if this is one of your first couple times maybe to the Features Talk podcast, we had three episodes before this. It's a 4-part miniseries. So here we are in part 4. We had 3 mini episodes before, kind of half-hour segments, really focused on certain things. So we went through things like the Euro NCAP's 2020-26 overhaul, NCAP meaning New Car Assessment Program. We went over, federal mandates requiring cars to stop for pedestrians in limited lighting and darkness, in
Yep.
addition to cars. And then also, most recently, we talked about what Lisa cleverly called the invisible infrastructure. Essentially, all the systems being put in place to kind of pave the way for autonomous vehicles to have more V2X communication, or vehicles communicating with everything else around them.
Yep.
And how the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, I'm forgetting
Yep.
there's so many acronyms, and their spectrum management, how do cars communicate with all this stuff, and the Alliance for Automotive Innovations policy work. You look at our previous miniseries episodes, and you can find more deep dives on those.
Yeah.
But today, it's bringing it back to arguably the most important layer of all of this, which is the human layer.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about government initiatives. We've been talking about policy, evolutions of policy and policymaking, and also on the more technical side, how do vehicles communicate with structures around them? But now, what's ultimately the layer that makes any of this work?
Yep.
It's humans. It's how humans operate it, correctly or not correctly.
Mhm.
And so this is where we're focusing on the National Safety Council
Yep.
and a couple very important initiatives called the Our Driving Concern program, as well as some things more specific to FeaturesFirst and Lisa's vision for how all that shakes up.
Yeah, whoa. First of all, we've talked about a lot. We have
Mhm.
we have covered a lot of ground with this mini series. And honestly, I think that if anybody is like new to driver assistance systems, whether you're purchasing a car or not, I think this mini series, if you watch all episodes, you are going to get a very holistic view of what
Mhm.
is happening in the world from a regulatory perspective, from the infrastructure, the road that you're driving on today, and then down to how you actually can be involved in this whole movement, which is what we're talking about today. It's that last mile. It's the human. At the end of the day, we can, yes, the standards can be created and the mandates can be created, but there's behavior change that has
Yes.
to happen, and we are all accountable. All of us that take the opportunity to get behind the wheel of a vehicle, we have a responsibility to do that in the safest way possible. And we check those boxes off as drivers when we buy safe cars. We make sure that it's the 5-star safety rating. And so we check that part off. But what is the behavior as well? What is the
Mhm.
behavior changes that maybe will have to happen to drivers of all ages as technology is taking the front seat? And so
Yep.
today we're going to dive into maybe some initiatives that you've heard of before. Maybe you haven't heard of them because maybe you've seen them in your employer where you work. And so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. But you're right, Luke. It's the human. It's the human at the
Mhm.
end of this. And so we are going to talk exactly about the human today. We're breaking it all the way down. And we are going to do this episode just like we did all 3 episodes. Let's go over some basic terms so that the
Mhm.
listeners can actually navigate the episode with ease. And
Mhm.
the National Safety Council, like you said, Luke, it's a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to eliminating deaths, preventable deaths. So that
Yeah.
means that this could have been prevented. And if it could have been prevented, this is how we can prevent it. And they do that through driver safety programs as well. And they have a annual Distracted Driving Awareness Month, which is in April. And we actually just I believe our first two episodes, we referenced Distracted Driving Awareness Month and how that tied into, what we were talking about. And so I am very curious, Luke, is this your first time hearing about the National Safety Council, or are you familiar with them?
I had heard of them before. I have never done a super deep dive on all their ins and outs and every
Yeah.
initiative they've taken or what they have, in the pipeline. But I know of them. I
Yes.
know of them. I know of Distracted Driving Awareness Month. And my birthday month is also April.
Yeah.
And so I know of them.
Yeah.
But in our kind of collaboration and research for this episode, it was cool to learn about some of the specific things that they have
Mhm.
working and what their some of their initiatives to bring more distracted driving awareness and
Mhm.
prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the National Safety Council has done a great job with putting out great resources for us, the public, to understand the effects of distracted driving, even at the teen level, and then providing resources. And one of the programs that they have is called Our Driving Concern, which we are going to talk about that today. And
Mhm.
so when we're thinking about bringing it to the human level, employers, we are at our jobs 8 hours of the day. So if we're thinking about how many people are working, and we're talking about maybe filling this gap and making sure that the safety message, all of the stuff that we talked about in our previous episodes, how do we get that to the masses? Well, there are employer traffic safety programs that exist. And the National Safety Council has created that, and it is designed to bring structure to driver safety training to the workforce. So how does this large gap, this knowledge gap, how is it being filled when we're talking about distracted driving, even the technologies that reduce that risk? How is that being filled in the workforce? Here is a program that is actively working and actively involved in many different workforces, bringing that safety message to the front. And so we're going to dive more deeper into that, but that is one of the terms that the listeners, we want you to know, because that'll help you navigate a little bit better.
Our driving concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, and I've actually talked about this particular pledge with my son. And so it's called Just Drive Pledge. And I'm pretty sure there have been many campaigns for the Just Drive. Put your phone down, no texting, you are just driving. And so the Just Drive Pledge is a national safety, it's a free public commitment tool. So you as a driver are actively, intentionally making a commitment to drive distracted free. You are just going to drive. And so this is an actual tool that you as a driver can go to today, and you can actually say, I am going to make a commitment. And it encourages drivers to eliminate all distractions behind the wheel. So here is another way at that human level that you can take a behavior change step. How can I actually involve myself in bridging this knowledge gap, or in making a commitment to be a safe driver? Here is a tool. Here is a commitment tool that you can use for your family, your teen drivers, and others that you know. And so it's bringing this down to the human level. Because remember, the 3 episodes that we discussed, we talked about what the policymakers are doing. We talked about the alliances that are put together. We talked about the technology creators and the OEMs and how they're building the cars and the tech. So now we're talking about us. This is what we can do.
Exactly. And this, these two together, when you mentioned the Our Driving Concern being focused on something that employers can use to kind of help, hopefully, raise the safety standard amongst everyone that they employ.
Yeah.
And then the Just Drive pledge. I mean, it reminded me when I started at my current job at one of the other current jobs that I have. I had been there for 1 week exactly, and on exactly on 1 week, and I was actually bringing a vehicle to someone. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was driving a vehicle back to our location, and on my way back, I was stopped at an intersection with it was a red arrow, right, to indicate turn left, and the through traffic light turned green. Our red arrow stayed red, but the car to my right must have seen green and assumed it was the arrow, and they turned right into the other lanes through traffic, and gigantic T-bone accident not 10 feet in front of me.
Wow.
And so again, I can, and thankfully none of it touched me. I wasn't involved, but
it's again,
real. I just saw that and I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's real.
3 feet forward, and that I probably would have been hit by that.
Absolutely.
And so
it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and the commitment that's being made for safety and safe driving at the government level, at the regulatory level, that commitment has to be made at our level too. It has to be made at our level too. And so the workforce plays a huge part in bridging that, because there's plenty of fleet drivers, fleet managers that are hiring their employees to drive the fleet, and they need them to drive safe. We work with fleet.
Exactly.
Okay, so we are very aware of that. And so one final term that we're going to talk about today is called Feature Ed. That is our FeaturesFirst Auto microlearning platform. And so we have designed this to bridge the ADAS knowledge gap at the point of first encounter. So if you think about all of the use cases of when you first encounter driver assistance systems, that could be at your job. You could be working for a company that has a fleet of vehicles, and they have vehicles that have driver assistance systems in them. And you are now being faced with, you have to work this vehicle. You have to make sure you're driving at efficiency for fuel efficiency and safe, or you are at the dealer and you're purchasing a new car and you have a fully loaded driver assistance system, or maybe you're a teenage driver and you are taking your driver's ed and you are being introduced with these driver assistance systems. So we have developed our microlearning platform to really be able to bridge that specific knowledge gap at the point of first encounter. And so that is another way that at the public level, you are now giving an opportunity, if you're purchasing a new car, to educate yourself on the driver assistance systems in your car. And so these are the specific tools that we're going to discuss today that at the public level, we can make behavior changes. We can get involved and we can do more. And so, Luke, I know we've spent 3 episodes on the standards, and the infrastructure, but to you, why does the human behavior layer deserve its own dedicated episode rather than just like being a footnote, as a policy conversation?
Right. I mean, the best example I can give is the one I just did, is that in most people's day to day, even us who are like kind of focused on this space, even us, like, we don't actually go about our entire day thinking about every single policy happening at every minute. A lot of it is, for most normal people doing their own day to day, it's all out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And now it's, as kind of the world of safer driving and the road towards more autonomous vehicles starts to become more realized, it's important to know what all is powering that and what is fueling that, those changes. But ultimately, it's down to, how does this impact a person just going somewhere? And and I was, a person going somewhere. In my case, I was on the clock doing my job, but then there was these other people that I assumed they weren't on the clock, for their job, and they were just through, I have to assume, some kind of distraction, did just make a turn into oncoming traffic because they misinterpreted what light turned green. From not maybe paying close enough attention, and then bam,
Yeah.
and then giant accident, and you never think it's going to happen, or at least you think it's so unlikely to happen until it actually happens, either to you or a matter of few feet in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
as it did for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so then that's where you suddenly, that moment kind of cuts all through all, like, oh, what's the policy for this?
Yeah.
What's, who's making these changes? What organizations are paying attention to that? It's just like, damn, that just happened.
Yep.
That could have been me.
Yeah.
And so then it just makes you think, okay, well, how do we just make that not happen to people?
Right.
And
Right.
so it's, I'm not suggesting, seek out, accidents to remind yourself of it, but it's the human layer is ultimately, how does it affect people in your day to day? It can be it's on the lighter end, it's going to be the difference between getting to work on time or not. On the on the worst end, it's going to be a loved one not coming back from work.
Correct.
And that's really that's where, I mean, I use the work example, but it could be anything. It could be going out for a leisurely drive or going to work.
Yep.
But I use the work example because that's where I had that happen just like 1 year ago now, and also just because we've worked with fleet, and
Mm-hmm.
we work with fleet organizations, and
Yeah.
so, and that really brings us to the Just Drive Pledge
Exactly.
and the National Safety Council.
Yep. It's it's when you're talking about the human level, a lot of the times you hear about things like the Just Drive Pledge, right? And you're like, yeah, it's a nice gesture, but is it really actually changing anything? Is it from a cognitive perspective, it is a vital psychological reset. So just exactly what you just said, Luke, with understanding that we're talking about people's lives. What you witnessed could have been you.
Mm-hmm.
And that psychological understanding, when you match a commitment to that, it brings about behavior change. And so if we're completely honest with ourselves, distraction isn't just, a teenager problem. Because a lot of times people like to say, oh, it's the teens that are distracted driving. It's happening to all of us.
Oh, I'm an adult now. I don't get distracted.
Yes,
or,
yes, yes.
Like, oh, okay. If anyone's honest with themselves,
we are all
like you've never done that while driving. Come on. Like,
yes.
It is not, once you get past whatever the label of teen is in people's minds, apart from just the age number, no one is exempt from that. We're all imperfect human beings. And so everyone is going to fall prey to that at some point.
Exactly. And the pledge, if you're looking at the Just Drive Pledge, it really is forcing a conscious decision before you ever put the car in drive, that you're going to silence your phone and you're going to set your navigation. You're going to do all those things in advance that you can be fully present behind the wheel. It's the individual, it's the foundation. And so knowing that the tool exists, the National Safety Council, the tool exists, and it's serving an opportunity for you to have a reset for personal accountability. It's often categorized and used for youth drivers. So if we have listeners that are working with organizations and you have youth driving programs, this is a great tool to be able to bring to that program. If it's a distraction at the adult level as well, because if we're honest with ourselves, it really does happen with everyone. And so the pledge forces a conscious decision to silence your phone and eliminate all distractions. And we have actually put links to these pledges and everything that we're discussing today.
Yeah,
so
I was going to mention that earlier. Yeah. We are providing links to exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So I am encouraging every single listener today to take the pledge, to take a behavior step. Take a step to say, I am going to drive safer. In addition to all of the learning about driver assistance systems that we advocate for, it also comes down to a basic decision. I'm going to be a safe driver. And this is the way at the human level that we close the gap of eliminating and reducing all of these collisions. And so, Luke, individual commitment is a part of the equation, but how do we scale this behavior across thousands of drivers at once?
Yeah, so that's Well, I mean, of a listener base of tens of thousands would be great. So spread the word. You know, hey, if you know a few tens of thousands of people you want to share the podcast with, do that.
That's right. That's
that'll help
right.
our outreach. But so until we get to that point,
Right.
until we get to the point where the human race tunes into the Features Talk podcast,
Exactly.
a big component of this is the workforce.
Yeah.
The workforce is just enormous, not just in terms of the number of people in the workforce somehow, and this is speaking specifically in the United States. I'm sure the number of people in the workforce is a very high number, in across all different kinds of workforce, whatever that entails.
Yeah.
But also just think of how many people are impacted by that, or
Right.
by those people, right? And so whether you're driving just on your own for your own enjoyment or whatever, or if you're driving, for work, especially like people driving large utility vehicles and up to like semi trucks and things like that. And then that does kind of cover every single driver in the US, right? And so the workforce is enormous, and it's a big thing. That's why the Our Driving Concern LMS, or Learning Management System, is so huge. And we referenced the Our Driving Concern initiative by the National Safety Council earlier. And what it does is that program specifically recognizes that employers have a unique opportunity and responsibility to build, I guess you could say, a culture of traffic safety, or to like have that be the norm.
Absolutely.
Because if you think, how many people in the US, if you were to like assign a number, how many people in the US are off the clock and driving either for their own enjoyment or just for a personal errand of maybe need to go to the store or something?
Right.
That would be a certain number of drivers.
Right.
But that would not encompass, any semi-truck drivers, anyone driving for utility, tow truck drivers, anything like that.
Right.
Or even just me when I was just driving someone's car to the location where I was working. I was on the clock. I was not doing it for a personal enjoyment drive. I was doing a job. And then if you consider the people only doing their job,
yes,
just their job, that is a different set of people. But what would the number of drivers be when you consider people who are employed to drive interacting with people who are not employed to drive?
Correct.
That then is everyone. Yes. And so that's why the Our Driving Concern, that learning management system is enormous. And it's an employer-focused traffic safety framework. And like I said, it utilizes what we call an LMS, a learning management system. And it's all about scaling safe driving behavior from the individual. Like you said, the individual is part of it. Each individual person listening to us, or learning about it elsewhere. But how do you scale that to how do you scale that from the individual to the household, to the community, to then even at large? And really the best way to do that is to tackle entire workforces.
Yeah.
Because so many workforces involve some driving in some way.
Absolutely.
And that can encompass delivery fleets, corporate vehicles, even just normal commuters. And it allows companies to build a very measurable, safe driving culture and have that be the norm.
Exactly. When an employer invests in that safety culture, because that's what that is, the employer is making an investment, that actually ripple effects onto the public road. And that is massive, because they are on the public roads. And that is precisely why that program has been created. It takes care of that, the workforce, and bridging that gap. And
ripple effect's a good way to put it. I was thinking it's like a giant domino effect almost.
Yeah. The programs like Our Driving Concern, they do a great job, an incredible job with training drivers on that behavioral safety distraction. And it needs to be at the workforce level too. But then there's also bridging that gap that's happening at the public level now with Feature Ed. And so Feature Ed is coming in, where filling that gap and bringing that ADAS knowledge when we're talking about anyone that could be encountering the driver. You could be traveling and renting a vehicle. And we have had so many stories like this of learners that have taken our courses and they were renting cars and they were saying, we have no idea how to work the vehicle. They just gave us the key and we're going. And I will share a short, small story. There was a gentleman, I was traveling and he rented a Mach E. And I will never forget this. I was walking out of my hotel going to actually pitch an event for Features First, and he could not figure out how to charge the car. I caught him outside cursing and he was so frustrated. And he literally said, I'm getting ready to take the vehicle and I'm going to park it there and leave it. And I was like, absolutely not. And I literally did an in-service. I said, this is this. But it just showed the effects of that knowledge gap at the point of first encounter. So when you're renting a vehicle and getting a fully loaded vehicle you have never driven before, bridging that gap. And so now there is a tool that is bridging that gap, and it's called Feature Ed. And so it is taking that technology literacy gap and it's meeting drivers exactly where they are, whether it's through an employer fleet, whether it's through a dealership or a teen driving program. And so FeaturesFirst Auto's mission is to bring ADAS education to 100,000 drivers by 2027. And we do that as a company by who we partner with. So partnering with organizations like GHSA, the Governor's Highway Safety Association, that partners with state highway safety offices to develop safety driving programs for the public. So we've done a great job with layering all of the different tools that exist at the public level for us to get involved now. So now we don't get to just sit back on the sidelines and say, no, we need policy and we need protection and we need privacy. You also play a part. And we brought that human level today. At the workforce, even at the dealer, at the teen driving programs, it's now at every level.
Yeah, exactly. And that human layer is what the aim is. That's the goal, because again, that is what will have the most impact in each individual person's daily life, in the microcosm that is each individual person's own lived experience. And the Mustang Mach-E is a good example of that, where whatever the problem is, like if you have somewhere to be, especially if you're like there on business, if you have somewhere to be, if you have things to do, in the moment where you just can't seem to figure out how to charge your car, which then it's like, do you really care about what policies are being made in the background?
Correct.
Do you really care about the acronyms that like, oh, Lisa and Luke talked about that one time? No, you don't. You care about charging your car so you can move it.
That's right.
And so that's, again, Feature Ed focusing on building a better knowledge base about, at the user level is very important. And then also, I have to reiterate the importance of, and this is also something that is our users, our listeners, have made it very clear as is most important to them, is the human layer of people close to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Like I said, the human layer of this is that driving safe and having a car that is as safe as possible, and especially the person utilizing it, how they utilize it, can be the difference between get to work and back safely, or if something goes wrong, again, in the best case scenario, you get to work late or you get home a little bit late. The worst case scenario is you don't see the loved one again. And and of course, none of that is wished on anyone. And our whole purpose of that is preventing that. Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is we actually had a listener write into us with that exact kind of thing.
Yeah.
On this human layer we're talking about, we have, if anyone's new to us here, we have a segment of FeaturesTalk called Listener Lane. Yeah. And this is where we encourage our listeners, anyone who's in touch with us to, or is just finding us, to send in questions, send in comments about any of our discussions. And we like to address these directly because it's ultimately we're speaking to them and you, not just the screen or the webcam or whatever it is. And so we had a listener write into us and say, hey, Lisa and Luke, if I'm shopping for a pre-owned vehicle for my teen, So how can I figure out if its older safety features actually stand up to today's rigorous testing standards?
Mm,
And it's a good question because, especially as prices go up, we
yeah.
were talking about gas prices just earlier. Putting in six plus
Mhm,
dollars a gallon is fun. No, it's not. Uh, not everyone has the money to just drop on a brand new car.
yeah.
Never mind the luxury space, but just like not everyone has a brand new car money to just drop like that.
Mhm.
Especially if you're looking at something for a new driver, a teenage driver. You've mentioned your son and
Yes.
your other boys before. Not that we don't want them to have nice things, but it's that for a new driver,
Yeah.
it's a brand new shiny expensive car can be a big ask. And
Mhm.
so, and this again is it touches on that, but really again, this is that human layer of how do I know how can I feel
That's
safe that
right.
the person I love is safe?
That's
And
right.
so the quick answer to this is that unfortunately but truly, the older safety features are mostly not going to stand up to today's standards.
Yeah.
And and as we mentioned, what are those standards? Well, check out the earlier part of this mini series.
Mhm,
You'll see exactly what those standards are talking about.
mhm.
That's what the goal is. And so cars from a few years back are not going to measure up to that or even be able to be retrofitted to
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And today, regulatory testing is much tougher and it's pushing systems to, as we mentioned, detect pedestrians and cyclists in pitch darkness.
Yep.
And so, generally, vehicles that are about 6 years back is that's not a hard written rule on this, but generally 6 years back is where I wouldn't say don't consider getting that car, but I would say have just kind of the knowledge that the safety tech has quote unquote expired. Again,
Yeah.
that's kind of more my wording than an official wording, but those safety systems from about 6 years back have more or less kind of expired, according to the standards that NHTSA, NHTSA, and the Euro NCAP or the New Car Assessment
Mhm,
Program
mhm.
are specifically looking for. A car from about 5 to 6 years back is just not going to be reaching that. And so the best thing to do then, if that car fits the budget and you know it has good service history and that there's no major malfunctions with it and that it is a safe purchase, then always ask for that vehicle's repair and sensor calibration history.
Mhm.
Make
Mhm.
sure it has a good clean history and nowadays on modern cars as we've referenced before, paying attention to a good service history is not just did it have its oil changed on time and are the spark plugs good or and stuff like that. Not that those aren't important, but also with cars from a few years back, again in that 6 or so years back now, there's going to be safety system calibrations that can
Yes.
be done at service centers.
Yes.
And make sure you can see that. Make sure that's part of the vehicle's history that's presented to you especially if this is going to be used by a younger driver, probably a late teenage driver.
Mhm.
And and the safety system, even if the safety system checks out perfectly, yes, it's going to be a few years back. It's not going to be as modern as a brand new car, but it'll still check out. It will still do its job. Ultimately, it's only going to be as good as the teen, or I say
Right.
teen, but that driver that operates it.
That's right.
Cameras and radars can do amazing things, but if the driver themselves is not paying attention, then doesn't matter how safe of a vehicle you have. To reference this again, if you're not paying attention and you make a bad left turn into oncoming traffic,
Mhm.
that's what's going to happen. And so I would say that if you're looking at a vehicle like that, of especially an older one, make sure you have the sensor and safety system calibration history in
Yeah.
addition to all other standard service history.
Yes. And if you're a teen, he or she has not, have them take the Just Drive pledge because
Mm-hmm.
we have the link in the chat for you. That is another thing that you can do as well to make sure you can bridge that behavior, with the right car, with the right tech. And
Exactly, because anyone listening to content today has never heard anyone say check the description for links below. No one's ever said that before. But hey, since now it's maybe a matter of you and people you love driving safely, maybe do actually check the links in our
exactly.
description because
Yes.
these have far-reaching implications.
Exactly. For all of us. For all
Mhm.
of us. That was a great. I love that you brought the calibration in there. I love the fact because that is very, very big when you're looking at that, when you're looking at the vehicles that you're going to get for your team.
Yeah.
I feel like we have talked about even just a lot in this episode. We've done 4 episodes. We've done 4 layers deep. Um, and we have proven that the rules exist and the
Yeah.
overall or the overhauls are happening. The data projections and the documentation is happening. And now we talked about the public and the human behavior. We are now being pulled into the ecosystem as well. And so it's very important that you understand out of the whole entire series, you do not have to trust technology blindly. You just have to understand that what is being designed to you, being designed for you, you need to understand it. You need to know how it works. You need to know that
Mhm.
there are standards that are surrounding it, that are backing it, that are a foundation for it. There are organizations that have been created, and there are people in place specifically to make sure that the tech is working. And that was the point of this series, is to give you that holistic view to know this is all working. There are people in place making sure that this tech is going to work. And so us at the driver level, now we can bring our human behavior change in, and we can say, we're going to get behind this. We're going to get behind it, and we're going to be safe drivers. And we're going to make sure that we don't become a statistic on the road. And so a driver who understands all of this is a safer driver. And they are also a part of the solution, which I feel like we should, as a public, want to be a part of the solution. And so if today's conversation changed how you think about vehicle safety, please pass this whole mini series on to a colleague or a parent and help us bridge that tech knowledge gap.
Yep.
If you
Or an entire corporation,
have
they'll find it useful also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly where I was just getting ready to go to, is our corporate partners and our business partners. We've talked
Mhm.
about the Just Drive pledge that you can present to your employees. We talked about the Our Driving Concern, which is a specific employer tool that you can use. It's
Mhm.
absolutely free. And these links have been shared in the chat. And so absolutely take full advantage of this and get behind the movement of improving driver safety on the road. And that is
Mhm.
for every single person. And so thank you for joining us for our Distracted Design mini series. Do not forget to subscribe to the Features Talk podcast on YouTube
Mhm.
and follow us on LinkedIn. We have so much more in store for you guys. This series is ending, but we are just getting started for the season 3. So stick
Mhm.
around for our next season episode and drop your questions in the comments, because you never know, it might be our listener lane question.
Yep.
And until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and drive
Drive safe.
safely. Bye, guys.